Hello, this is Paul McGann.
And this is Jake McGann.
And you're listening to
Traveling the Vortex.
Ding dong.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex. And give us your time. Because it's time for episode 235. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm good.
Me too.
Well.
Just well?
Well. Feeling well.
You guys have a good weekend? And a good week?
Pretty decent weekend, yeah. We didn't watch anything. We didn't do
I've been
much.
reading this book.
Yeah. I'm about halfway through Star Wars New Dawn. It's pretty good so far.
Is it?
It's a lead into the Rebels TV series. But it's very grown up. I mean, it's not, it doesn't read like a young adult novel. It reads like one of the Star Wars, you know, the old classic Legends stories. It's pretty violent, too. And then, yeah, I finished Forgotten Son, Lethbridge Stewart, Forgotten Son this week. Got my review on Goodreads, so you've still got a few days to finish that one up, and you have a few days to vote on Goodreads Traveling the Vortex Book Club. If you want to get your say in next month's book.
I'd like to get my say in, but I need pictures.
Just base it off the cover.
There are titles and authors, and I don't recognize any of them, and it's kind of like
That's what the Googles are for.
Yeah, I have to Google
Do
some
your
to get some
research.
pictures. That's how I vote in elections too. Gotta have a picture. I think electronic ballot boxes should be like big picture buttons.
You push the button. You tell like, click that person.
It could be color coded, red and blue.
This guy looks nice.
He wore a green tie. I don't trust him. That's
He'd
totally
be an
it.
independent. Or a Green Party.
Yeah.
They could all wear clothes based on their party
Hey,
color.
that would be so much simpler for the American public. I don't know why we don't do
The
that.
Green Party's still around. I know wasn't that Ralph Nader's party?
I think it was. I don't know if it still is. I'm sure it is. There are so many third parties now. It's
Yeah.
funny.
If they'd all get together, they might make one
Yeah.
actual third party that could contend. I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to see that happen.
We watched a lot of stuff.
Oh.
Well, I watched a lot. Sarah only watched two things. I watched Into the Woods, the recent musical from Disney. It was good. Have you seen it, Sean?
I've not seen it yet.
You mentioned last week that you had seen it, but I don't think you actually talked about it on the show, because I don't remember your review. You talked about James Corden, and then said, I think I talked about it, and then we kind of agreed, and then later I thought about it, and was like, I don't remember his review of it.
Oh, it was good.
I think he said he liked
I
it.
swear.
I think he said that
I swear we did it on mic. Now, it might have got edited out of the show, but I swear
So
we
that Johnny
didn't
Depp
remember.
was
We didn't
very
talk about
much
last
part of
week.
it.
We talked about it 2 weeks ago.
He's mentioned Johnny Depp last week too,
Yeah.
which agreed, but he's in so little of it that it helps. And it's not so much Johnny Depp; it's more the design of his costume. Chris Pine is one of the highlights of the movie.
I like that you said he did a better, or he did.
He
did
channels Shatner
channel
more in
Shatner.
this than he does in Star Trek, even down to the singing.
Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorite numbers in Into the Woods. And they both did a fantastic job.
you've seen the stage play before, I take
A couple
it?
times.
I've only seen it once, and that was the year after I graduated high school. That was the next musical the class behind me
Oh,
did.
you saw a high school version.
So yeah, I went back to see the high school version, which Topeka High, so pretty high up there in high school version.
You can only say that because you went there. Because I've been to two of their performances. It wasn't too impressive.
It was when I was there. Anyway,
Was one of the performances Oklahoma?
No, one of them was Fiddler, and the other one was. It's escaping me what the second one I saw there. Not coming to me. It's
I
another.
agree
It's
with
another
you.
older one.
If
Oh, Guys and Dolls. Guys and Dolls.
if you saw it at Topeka High, you saw one of the better.
I got the
Better
one of the best
versions
stages
of the
for it. I'll
local-
give them that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this was
definitely.
20 years ago.
Oh.
You weren't even in high school at that time. And you'd have been out of high school for several years, so there must have been some downtime between.
Well, they
It's like Saturday Night Live casts. They're consistently good, and then you get an off year.
Yeah. The seniors
Must have been
graduate.
two
They got
off
to get
years
some.
because it was 2 different years that I saw.
Yeah, because they do one musical every year.
Yeah.
But I would recommend Into the Woods to anyone who's any bit intrigued by it. James Corden does a fantastic job. He is so good in that role. The more I see of him, the more I like of him as an actor. And Emily Blunt does a great job. Everybody really.
Edric Kendrick, she's the best part of it.
Anna Kendrick did it.
What did I say?
Edric Kendrick?
Andrick?
I
think I was morphing the words together.
I think you were
Anna
morphing.
Kendrick.
She was really great.
Anna Kendra.
Seeing her in that makes me want to go watch Pitch Perfect. Because I've never seen it. And I've heard it's really good.
Seeing her in that makes me want to watch everything she's in. Except for Twilight, maybe.
Well, yeah.
Of course, when I saw her in
you've
Twilight,
seen one thing she was in.
when I saw her in Twilight, I thought, oh, she's going to be pretty when she grows up. Not realizing she was already like in her 20s.
She was the first thing I noticed her in was Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
I didn't realize she was in that.
She was Scott's sister.
She was real young in
the one that
so
starts cussing at him.
I should
they
go
bleep
back.
it out.
I should go back and watch it because she probably was underage then.
But then I also started watching an anime, as weird as that is for me.
That's incredibly weird for you.
Yeah, a guy at work highly recommended it, and I had heard some things about it. It's called Outlaw Star.
Oh, an old one.
It came out the same year as Bebop.
Yeah, an old one.
You can't tell by looking at it because it looks older, just based off the animation style. It's different. It's interesting. My complaints with anime aren't as prevalent in this. Kind of like same thing with Bebop. It's very similar in story. It's about bounty hunters in space. Well, kind of bounty hunters in space. I've heard it said that, and I can see some of the parallels, that between this and Bebop is where Joss drew inspirations for Firefly and then put in the Western stuff. Like, took the literal cowboy aspect of Bebop and made it more literal in the show. There's even down to the end of the first episode of Outlaw Star, which I'm 5 episodes in. So I'm a disc down, and there's 26. So I'm about to the point where I decide if I'm giving up on it or keeping with it. And at this point, I'm going to keep with it. But in the first episode, these 2 characters are helping this woman do illegal stuff. It's kind of confusing. But the episode ends with them opening this big crate, and inside it is a curled up woman. Naked. A la River. And so supposedly there are more correlations later. That was the biggest one I've seen so far. And supposedly Joss hadn't never heard of this series before Firefly came on the air, which would have been only 4 years before. So it might not even crossed over to America yet. So who knows? So it's interesting. I'm enjoying it. Then we watched Safety Not Guaranteed. That was really good. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't as funny as I expected, but I really enjoyed it.
Who's in that?
What's her face?
Oh, yeah.
She's good in everything.
From Parks and Rec.
Anna Poehler? Amy Poehler?
No. The emo girl.
Oh.
See, you're blanking on her name, too. She was also in Life After Beth. All right, I'm going to the IMDb. The biggest note is it's directed by Colin... How do you say his last name? Trevorrow, who did Jurassic World.
Trevorrow, isn't it?
Trevorrow.
Trevorrow.
Yeah. So this was his directorial debut, and he did a really good job directing it. For those who don't know, it's inspired by this newspaper ad saying, looking for a companion to travel in time, bring your own weapons.
Oh,
I've only seen this. I've only done this once. Safety not guaranteed.
I do remember.
Hence the title.
I think you talked about it.
Yeah.
I reviewed it. Yeah. I liked it.
It was really good.
Just one. You were the one that told me to watch it, though.
I hadn't seen. I wanted to see it. I probably told you about it, saying this movie looks amazing. You should, and you just
Got
beat
ahead
it
of him
to
for
me.
once.
The guy, Jake Johnson, I think is his name, from New Girl, is in it, and he does a really good job. The story is just phenomenal of these magazine writers and 2 interns going to research to find this guy who wrote this ad and trying to determine if he's nuts or if he actually thinks he's traveling in time or if he actually travels in time. And it winds up the writer's home, like he would go there to vacation. So it explores so many of the characters, and so many of the characters start out as caricatures and have growth throughout the entire movie and become fully fledged people by the end of it. It's the way they crafted the story is phenomenal. And apparently, I don't know if you watched. Did you watch the Blu-ray? Or did you watch it on Netflix before it fell off?
I watched it on Netflix, I think.
There's a bonus feature on the Blu-ray where a guy actually wrote this ad and placed it in a paper as a joke, but it was based off this story he had written, and he's still getting like they were able to draw a lot of ideas for the movie from the events that have happened, like because there's a P.O. box on there. So in the movie they go stake out the P.O. box to see if anybody goes and cleans it out. People actually did that to this actual P.O. box from the guy who placed the ad. So that was fascinating to listen to. Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey.
Yeah. And then tonight we watched The Terminator, which Sarah had never seen before.
How did that go?
She liked it. She thought it was interesting. I was a little worried that some of it was going to be a bit too
Dry.
No, she was pretty well engaged throughout the whole thing. I worried especially about the mirror scene. Some of the gore in the movie, knowing it's an 80s rated R movie. It's a bit gorier than we allow nowadays.
It's a legit rated R movie.
And that I remember that scene being hard to watch and being gory, and it really isn't. The eyeball scene and all that, and the arm.
See, I still think the actual eyeball is, but maybe it's because I have a thing with eyes. I still think it's tough to watch.
I thought she would kind of cringe and cover her face, but she didn't.
Maybe being set up in advance that he was a robot made it okay.
Maybe. Oh, I mean, you kind of know that idea by the time you get there, anyway.
Right, but I mean, just.
But she knew he was a Terminator.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, because they've established that he's not human. So then when he goes jabbing things into his face, it's like,
at that point, you already see the arm too.
Yeah,
so
he's not real.
Yeah. She really liked the story and the ideas it posed. We were talking about it later. She's kind of struggling with the idea that Kyle is John's dad and the paradox that causes. And I just try.
No paradox.
Just don't think about it. Because she thinks that there needs to be. Who was John's dad originally? Is
Kyle.
what she was asking, because somebody had to create John before he could send Kyle back.
No,
you'll have to explain it to her, Sean.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
That's what I said. It's just don't think about that.
Well, it is a paradox, but
yeah,
it's a self-fulfilling one.
Well, yes. That's what we watched.
What was the other thing you watched from Sarah? Or did she watch?
She watched Safety Not
She watched
Guaranteed.
Safety Not Guaranteed. Too.
Yeah, she liked that one. Yeah, she really liked the ending of it.
I did too.
Yeah, so did I.
We watched Terminator 2 this week, which Cameron once described Aliens. The feel he was going for Aliens is that he wanted you to feel like you'd driven over a 40-mile stretch of bad road. And I realized watching Terminator 2 that that's kind of what all of his movies are like. I love T2. But man, I love Cameron. I love Cameron. And man, I was exhausted by the time this thing was done. I mean, it was not in a bad way, just in that... And I got to thinking about it watching Terminators. I really think... I'd have to go back and do some real research, but I think that was the first instance of the bad guy coming back after having been killed.
Oh, really?
You know, that trope that everybody does now where, we killed the bad guy, yay. And, so they blow him up in the truck. And she's holding Reese, and it's like, it's over, and then the endoskeleton sits up.
Yeah.
It's like, I think this might be the first time that...
We got to that moment, and Sarah's like, don't stop, keep going. That thing's not going to be dead.
But, yeah, really, really, really enjoy T2.
I look forward to watching that one.
Just the... It's dated.
It's amazing how many tropes come from the first 2 Terminator movies in general. Yeah. And as the honest trailer for Terminator 2 likes to point out, how after that, Arnold becomes a parody of himself.
Yeah, really.
And so many of the great lines, the great action lines, come with me if you want to live, and I'll be back, and all that stuff comes from the first and second one.
And the second one is such a...
It has a very different feel from what I remember.
It does, actually, which kind of surprised me, that it's so much bigger and so much more expansive, despite in many ways being the same film.
Yeah.
Like
the stakes are higher.
The stakes
in this
are
one.
The opening where, it's the same Battle of the Future.
Yeah.
But they had a little money to do it. Now, the battle in the first one, where it's rear projection, and we built a section of bombed out concrete fence, and a couple of actors in the immediate, close to the camera, and then there's a couple of lasers that we put in. It still looks amazing.
Sarah was impressed by the effects in all of the first movie.
Yeah. But that same sequence, it even looks like it's the same guys in the truck, being chased in the beginning of the second film. And it's just like, oh, you had a little more money. This looks good. What's funny, though, is that T2 is almost more dated than the first one because it's so very 90s. The Guns N' Roses soundtrack and the haircuts and it's just
the Terminator's very 80s.
Yeah,
you can tell it was just hair alone. It was the 80s, which it's technically only a few months younger than me.
Yeah,
because it came out.
Thanks
in
for
August.
depressing me, by the way.
Yeah,
yes, I needed that.
No problem. It's older than Sarah.
God. I saw this in the theater like 3 times. I was old enough to get into R-rated movies, and you were born. But so much of what hit in the 90s came from Terminator 2. The liquid mercury. Let's put that in something where we've got stuff running together. The kind of amorphous blob shape-shifting thing. And just they stole all of that from this movie. And what's great is that even the stuff that you look at now through today's eyes and you kind of go, well, that effect didn't look super great, you immediately write off in your head because, well, he's living metal, so he's supposed to look a little clunky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your brain just accepts it as, yeah, that's how that would look. That's how that would work. And you just kind of roll with it. It's so much fun. And then tonight we watched T3, which I realized I had not seen since the theater. And I think it still holds up. You can tell it's not... I think Terminator 3 is a really fun action flick. You can tell it doesn't have the same deft direction from Cameron. Yeah. There's a few moments that are lacking in style. But I think it's competently directed. And the truck chase, I'll put up there with the trailer sequence from Lost World. For great action set pieces.
Yeah.
So... we had fun with it, and unfortunately now that means we get to watch Terminator Salvation.
Do you have the director's cut? At least.
I do.
See, I came up to all the Terminator movies later. And
you have the director's cut at least. Well, that just means they've added 20 minutes of film, too.
Supposedly.
The painful.
But supposedly, I never saw the theatrical, but supposedly the director's cut makes the theatrical better. It improves the film.
In some ways, it's like, the director's cut of Highlander 2. You're polishing it, but it's still...
The Renegade cut, though. That wasn't done by the director, though, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen the director cut of 2.
Oh, you should totally watch the Renegade version. It doesn't really fix a lot, but it...
Well, it omits the whole alien immortal thing. Well, sort of. It glosses
I don't remember 2 very well.
It spoonful of sugars in it. It makes it a little bit easier to swallow, but... Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a director's choice.
If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that it was the studio that pushed for this, and this, and that.
I thought it was done with his blessing, but I thought it was done by somebody else.
No, I'll have to go back and research that now that I've said it. But I'm pretty sure I read somewhere when I was going through a Highlander phase, and I read up all about what's his name, Russell McKay. Anyway, that was his desire to get out from underneath the bankers on that film. But yeah, that's really all we did. I did get a piece of really good news this week. I had a meeting down in Washburn, and this sounds odd to say this. I am officially now designated as a student with a disability. I know I don't get a cool place to park, but I can put together a proposal based on the events of this semester, and hopefully, knock on wood, might be able to submit or substitute a different class to take in place of the language requirement for
That'd
graduation.
Be really good.
So hopefully that'll go well. I'm going to work on my proposal tomorrow and see what comes of that. But
You're right. Highlander 2 Renegade version is the director's cut.
What's his name? Since you went there? Is it Russell McKay? Or Russell? It's Russell somebody.
Russell McKay.
Yay! Look at the brain. Steel trap still works. But yeah, that was really all I did.
Let's move on to news.
News. Our first bit of news is very exciting. Some very big Finish news.
We're going to lead off with that one, huh?
We're going to lead off with that one. There's going to be a whole new plethora of box sets that you're going to want to purchase, so save your money now. Especially if you're a fan of the new series. First up, Alex Kingston as River Stong is going to be joining the Doom Coalition. In Doom Coalition 2, alongside the 8th Doctor, Liv, and Helen. That's really exciting. The fact that River and 8 get to pair up together.
I think what makes that interesting is the fact that, of course, due to the fact that she meets her husband for the first time as 10, that she will have to... I don't think she'll be the River that we know. I think she'll have to tiptoe around the fact that she is who she is, because... Yeah.
Tim would have recognized her.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So it'll be interesting to see how they work themselves out of that hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of thought, Big Finish has done a good job over the years of dealing with the continuity, and I trust they'll come up. I don't know what they'll do, but I trust they'll come up with a clever play.
And then
Wayne and Garth will come out and go.
Let's hope not.
River will later return. Okay, so that's coming out in 2016. Later in 2016, Doctor Who: The Diary of River Song. An epic 4-hour adventure that takes River across space and time, seeking out the secret rulers of the universe. And Paul McGann will reprise his role as the 8th Doctor in the final installment.
Well, spoilers.
So I'm wondering if there's going to be a Doom Coalition connection in that part.
Oh, that's probably likely. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah.
And then
The two will probably tie together somehow.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. If you're only going to bring in Paul McGann, if you're not going to bring in Colin and Sylvester and Peter and anyone else. And then, new series stuff continues in the Churchill years, starring Ian McNeice. As he relates, so this sounds like it's more like a companion chronicle, relates the number of encounters with the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors in his memoirs. The stories are told by Ian McNeice, supported by a full cast of guest actors, including Danny Horn, playing Kazran Sardak in a story taking place during A Christmas Carol.
Young
Kazran.
Kazran.
If that wasn't enough, finally, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Doctors will face new series monsters in a series of stories called Classic Doctors New Monsters. So a 4-stories run will pit Peter Davison against the Weeping Angels.
Yay.
Colin Baker against the Jadoon.
Yay.
Sylvester McCoy will meet the Sycorax.
Yay.
And Paul McGann will face a new clone batch of Sontarans.
Yay.
Because they got to make a differentiation there, because they've had classic Sontarans on Big Finish before.
You know why this is exciting?
Why?
For the sole reason of being able to hear Sylvester McCoy pronounce Sycorax.
Sycorax.
He's going to drag that out into like a 17-syllable word. And it will be awesome.
So you can pre-order all of these for £20 each. And all 4 box sets were released in across 2016. So if you haven't listened to Doom Coalition 1, you might want to hop on that too.
This just in, the Vortex schedule is not out for 2016 yet. We don't have plans at this point to rush out, but we'll let you know as we get closer.
There was a box set for the Doom Coalition. Apparently it's 4 parts?
Sounds about right. I think all of the McGann stories post the Eighth Doctor post the Eighth Doctor Adventures and post 8 and Molly, I think are done as 4-part box sets, starting with Dark Eyes.
So there's going to be 4 Doom Coalition box sets, is what I'm saying. We've gotten 1 out and 2's announced, but there are still going to be 2 more that you can pre-order.
How do you figure that?
That's what they said in their release.
Oh, well then, okay.
And see?
That's how you figure
bundle.
that.
There's 4 Doom Coalitions.
Oh.
There's 2 more after the River songs.
So okay, well that would make sense.
Exciting stuff.
I'm
excited for more River song, especially the way they're doing it. I think that River's kind of run her course in New Who. I think they've kind of tied up that story nicely. But there's clearly some side storying that can be done with her character, and I'm glad that Big Finish is taking that on, because I think that could give her some more depth of character, I think.
Yeah. There's so many adventures she's been on that we never saw that we just get references to.
Well, and from her perspective, the Doctor's first time meeting her in 10, she comments, "I've never seen you look
this young
before." But as long as... No, because that's her last one. She can't set it afterwards.
She says later on, though, that she's seen all his faces. And
yeah, she has a spotter's guide.
Yeah, supposedly. I think this is, there might be some clever fixing to do there.
I got to go back and...
this is the youngest I've ever seen.
I was going to say, as long as she said it after that, you'd be fine. But it's like, oh, there isn't an after that for her, is there?
Unless they get her out of the library somehow.
Ooh.
I hope they don't do that.
I hope they don't do that either, but that's a way they could do it. I got to go back and relook in the Eternity Clock. You collect pages of River's diary, and she talks about going and seeing each incarnation. So I ought to go look and see what she says about 8. See if she fancies him like Bernice did. Or no, who was that?
Bernice.
Bernice. I said Bernice, but I thought of Evelyn for some reason. Both professors.
Probably
not. We should give a heads up, or thanks to Dr. Hill, who gave us a heads up yesterday. Yesterday morning? Yeah. Yesterday morning on this. As soon as he listened to the podcast, he sent us a message saying, go listen to the podcast, because it's Big Finish podcast this week. That's what they talked about. And
he was a bit excited.
Yeah, he was. I quickly went and listened to it. And what is this all about? And then when I heard it, I put something up on Traveling the Vortex. So we were actually one of the first Doctor Who fan sites on the internet to have it after Big Finish announced it. So
thanks to Dr. Phil.
Yes.
So how much detail did they give in the podcast?
About as much as they do in the press release. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know how much they would talk about what was going to happen.
Now they come back. I'm not sure who the person is at the end, but they come back kind of after they sound like they closed the podcast out with the producer and the director. And they come back with somebody else, which maybe is the writer. I don't remember. I really don't know who it is in the second part. The second part of this. But he kind of speculates there's so much more, especially as far as new series villains that you could bring into classic Doctors, and he kind of prattles on about the Slovene, and I can't remember who else he mentioned, but he said he closes out by saying, "Bring back the Wire. We're ready for bring back the Wire." That was the thing that made all the faceless people in Atlanta. I went, no. let's leave the Slovene alone and let's leave the Wire alone.
Scribble monster.
No.
If they could fix the Wire, maybe.
Well, okay. I'm just going to put this out there and I'm going to leave it. I don't want the Wire to come back. But if anybody could fix the Wire, it'd be Big Finish.
Yeah, I would agree.
Now the Absorbaloff, that's just a monster that's dying to be brought back. That's just a whole 6 could take care of him.
Other news. Before we go down that rabbit hole more, is there more Candyman stories? Can they focus on doing that before they bring back the Wire or something?
Let's do some classic villains we haven't had back yet.
The Quarks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring it on.
Well, there is a Dominator story, isn't there? Isn't there a Big Finish Dominator story?
Maybe.
No, I don't think so.
Oh. Darn, I'm just wishful thinking then. Speaking of the second Doctor's era, unfortunately, BBC Worldwide has abandoned plans to release the second Doctor story, The Underwater Menace, on DVD.
No!
They were going to animate it and release it.
You ought to be excited about this, Sean.
Now it's not going to happen. It's been canceled following financial problems at animation company Curios, which have seen the firm cease trading. So, it doesn't seem financially viable for another partner to take on the animation, and the BBC are reluctant to release an incomplete version, according to the BBC. So, but the caveat shortly after this news coming out,
which I'm totally going to take credit for,
is the BBC tweeted that this is not the end of the Doctor Who line. They look forward to releasing more stuff. Very cryptically saying. I'm trying to pull up the tweet right now to read it verbatim.
We're hoping to quote, "We're hoping to release more classic Doctor Who, and we'll let you know when we have news." End quote. BBC Worldwide on Twitter.
So that can't be construed as we're going to do more new series releases.
Yeah, but that can't be construed as we're doing more classic either. The key word in there is we hope. They're hoping, along with all the rest of the fans, that they'll find more Doctor Who. That's what that boils down to. I think that's BBC. That's their way of trying to say, don't lose hope, and because we're canceling a classic Who story, don't lose hope. There's always the future. I mean, it's just one of those things. I think they're trying to smooth over the backlash they were getting from the fact that they had canceled the Underwater Menace. And I mean, there was a petition out there, and there was people. I mean, there was lots of chatter online about this needs to happen. It needs to be done. Get it out there for us. That's really kind of the last.
Did my tweet not go through? Maybe I can't take credit for this.
Oh, did you tweet them and they're not showing up?
I did tweet them during Friday Night Who, because I commented that I actually ran out and bought a copy of The Web of Fear. To prevent any streaming problems. Wanted to make sure I had a DVD copy.
If I have any of your copies of anything now, I'm just not going to say it anymore, because apparently you'll just run out and buy another one. So.
But, because I knew obviously I bought it digitally through iTunes, but it's like iTunes and Chromecast don't like to talk to one another.
What'd you go buy?
Web of Fear. Okay. So I bought a legit DVD copy. And then I tweeted, at BBC Worldwide, you should take note that, some of us are willing to spend the money more than once if you release stuff. And the next tweet was, like Underwater Menace. And then this tweet shows up. So I'm totally going to take credit for it and say that I'm the one who did that.
I hate to burst your bubble.
Tweet didn't go out. So.
No, his tweet did go out.
It did go out?
But that tweet from BBC came out midweek.
Well, why are we just now reporting on it?
Well, we haven't recorded it.
No, but I mean, everybody was making a big deal like this was news like it just happened.
Well, the announcement
wasn't just you.
The announcement happened like that. The cancellation was like Wednesday, and then later that same day they put, or the next day it was like Tuesday, and then the next day they tweeted. Yeah, so it happened Wednesday. So
it was a reaction. We're just reporting on it now because.
Well, that's what I meant.
You were the one late to the game. No, you posted it. Never mind.
Yeah,
but you posted it on like Thursday.
When I saw the tweet. Yeah. I don't know when the tweet
Thursday
came out.
or Friday. I can't remember.
Maybe I just didn't see the tweet until. I didn't see the tweet had come out. I didn't see his post on the tweet until Saturday. So I guess I can't take credit for that. You're welcome.
Everybody, he tweeted that out, like Underwater Menace, and everyone went, they said that they're going to send more Classic Who out. What's he talking about? So your tweet was kind of worthless at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I shared the tweet on Friday.
Okay, that's what I thought Friday did.
I didn't see it till Saturday.
And that they had tweeted it that morning. So I was only a few hours behind.
So yeah, I'm only a few hours behind him, so I'm not all that far out of the game.
So the announcement about Underwater Menace must have been Thursday, because it was the very next day.
Which, I thought about this during the week when they said that it was the animation company had gone bankrupt, or at least was in enough dire financial straits that it wasn't coming. And I thought to myself, we've got things like Star Trek Continues.
We got fan productions.
There's enough fan productions out there that the Star Trek series, they have all of those special effects donated to them. It's just fans who want the show to look good, and they donate the computer time and the render time, and these are $1 million an episode special effects packages that they get for nothing. It's just because the fans are hungry for it. Surely there's some talented Doctor Who fans out there that can draw better than 2 stick figures and could animate these
shows.
Well,
we've talked about the Ian Levine animation for Shada that's out there. Now, that's a money thing. He tried to get that not licensed. He tried to get Too Entertained to purchase that from him and include it so that it was, because it was done and ready to go. And we talked about that battle between he and them. And he animated Mission to the Unknown, which I think we'll take a look at when we actually review the Dalek Master Plan. And there's a couple other off the shelf editing. They're not quite at the quality of, but I mean, the fans have been attempting to do that. So,
or in the age of Kickstarter, surely we could raise enough money that they could at least finish the animation and get it. To the BBC.
That's the one thing. Because I thought about that too, and I thought about we should just throw this out there.
I had heard that the animation was done.
I thought I heard that too, so I was quite surprised by that article.
I don't think they had restored the episodes yet, or they had. I can't remember which. It was either
maybe that's what we heard. Maybe they had restored the episodes, but they hadn't finished the
animation. Done. That might be.
I thought I heard that too. That the animation was done. So it's weird that the three of us would all think that at the same time.
On the other hand, when I hear things, I always think, well, I also heard that all of Doctor Who had been found. So.
Well, I still wonder if that's not why it was canceled. Because why animate it if you got the real thing?
Got it.
But
time will tell.
Yeah, time really will.
Because I like sticking that bear with a stick, but the Kickstarter idea I think is an idea that has some merit. But I worry then, are we in that slippery slope of okay, we're going to contribute money to get it finished and then have to turn around and buy it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Unlike the online Star Trek shows where you can Kickstart it and then enjoy it for free.
Right.
Well, although I think all the things like the Veronica Mars movie, it was, unless you paid a certain amount, you still had to go buy its movie ticket.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how Kickstarter is.
Right, but that's just what I mean from a fan standpoint. Would you go out and pay $50 for an episode?
No.
But that's essentially what we're saying, is that, okay, you donate $20 to the Kickstarter, and then we'll sell you the DVD for $19.99, and it's kind of like...
That's still, yeah.
I mean, we're still at that point. So now, does it make any difference from the standpoint of it being not available at all versus, one that's out there? I mean, can you rationalize it as if I don't do this, I'm never going to get to see it? I don't know.
You can still hold out hope, I guess.
Yeah, I'm really torn on that, because there's a part of me that's like, yeah, Kickstarter, let's go do something with this. And there's another part that's like,
Well, and there are some Kickstarters that fail. Not all of them succeed.
Well, I worry that that's a little too far down the logistical mindset for me to track. I don't want to do that. So I don't know. We'll keep you posted as we get more information on what is or is not happening with Underwater Menace.
That's for news. Let's go to our Doctor Who legacy.
Tip of the week.
Our tip comes from Eric. Eric writes in, pay attention to your one-turn buff. The slight bonus you get after winning the level that we've had for a few months now. Make sure you take advantage of the ones you get and take advantage of easy levels to get the ones you need. For example, I do a lot of grinding on Jenny in the fan area. But when I get a chest or a TARDIS buff, I use it to farm for rare drops, or usually just to get fragments from the random fragment farming level in the fan area. If there's a particularly tricky level that I need to get through, I try to get a TARDIS or maybe a health boost before I tackle it again. That's it. That's a good recommendation.
Thank you, Eric. Very good.
I always forget about the turn buffs, the one-turn buffs. Mostly because I oftentimes don't complete the level.
I don't necessarily forget about them, but they pop up there, and by the time I remember to look up at it, the icon has faded away, and then I'm stuck going, all right, what did that one mean? what ability do I have this next game?
Yeah.
I'm just going to go for it anyway.
I've been able to utilize them a couple of times to help get through levels. That's your Doctor Who legacy.
Tip of the week.
And if you have a tip that you'd like to hear on the show, or that you think is important, or that you think is good, or that you think should be shared, well, share it. Don't keep it to yourself.
Let us know. Send us in feedback. Feedback at travelingthevortex.com.
Speaking of feedback.
First up in feedback, we have Dan. Dan says, Fathers in Who. Hello, Vortex gents. I hope Glenn had a good birthday, and I hope you all enjoyed Father's Day in one fashion or another. I looked through a list of episodes and tried to jog my memory of the various fathers in Doctor Who. In no particular order, here are the memorable ones. Pete Tyler for Rose, various episodes. Craig for Alfie, Stormageddon, in Closing Time. King Peladon for Queen Thalria, in both Peladon stories.
So he was in both Peladon stories.
Wilfred Mutt, Sylvia's father, and more importantly, Donna Noble's grandfather, various episodes. Martha's dad. On second thought, nah. Professor Kettlewell for the K1 robot in Robot.
Yay!
I don't think of him at all. Rory's dad, Brian, in 3 stories. Rory, as River Song, or Melody Pond's dad. He has my vote. George's father, Alex, in Night Terrors, for keeping his son despite him being an alien. Captain Avery for his son Toby in Curse of the Black Spot. Lucius Carillius Lucindus, as played by Peter Capaldi, keeping his family together despite an unfolding catastrophe. Thomas Kincaid Brannigan, the new father, but an old-fashioned cat in Gridlock.
I did not think about
Brannigan.
Brannigan.
I did not think about him either. Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart for Kate Stewart, and maybe a father figure for Sergeant Benton.
I'm going to allow it.
Trimus, Nissa's father and keeper of Traken. Professor Travers for Anne in The Yeti and The Web of Fear. Vicky's father, Bennett. Actually, not so much. for lying to his daughter and keeping her in danger just to hide his own guilt in the rescue. Fair.
He would not get a vote over here.
Yeah, definitely not. I'm sure I passed over quite a few, but these were the ones that stood out in my memory. I just hope I wasn't too late in getting this feedback in. This weekend was a little busy, but fun. Thanks again, gents. Thanks again, guys. Dan. Well, Dan, we got it the next day, but
we did. Unfortunately, we had already recorded, so... and we asked people to send also if they thought of some more, and so this one retroactively worked, is that? I hadn't considered Kettlewell and George's father and Alex and Night Terrors. George's father, Alex, and Night Terrors. We forgot about it. We didn't say anything about those. I think we covered most of the rest of those.
I think somebody mentioned Alex, didn't they?
Somebody in the feedback did, yeah.
Oh, they did? Oh, okay.
But we didn't talk about him.
We didn't talk about him.
And I can't remember. Did we mention Professor Travers?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
We should have, knowing that we were going to
He hit on 3 that we didn't talk about. Very good.
Up next in feedback is Holly.
Holly writes, Phobos and No More Lies. Hey guys, great last podcast. Quick Highlander tangent before heading into the reviews. Sean is right. Boy, I really enjoy reading that in print. It just always brings a smile to my face. Don't watch The Source. Better off with Endgame and leaving it at that. Don't quote me 100% on this, but I think even one of the creators said that The Source wasn't canon. That speaks volumes right there. I vaguely remember reading an online article about that somewhere recently, and for the life of me in my Google foo couldn't find it. Shrugs. As for Highlander 2, I've seen both the original version and the Renegade version, and I'll go with the Renegade version every time. Yeah, we get the whole Immortals or Aliens thing in the second movie, but then that quickly gets forgotten for the TV series and the other movies. Thank heavens. Have to say that I did love the 2 series that Big Finish did for Highlander. Wish they could have done more. Who knows? Maybe later on down the line they'll pick it up again. Speaking of Big Finish... Yes, Keith?
I didn't know Big Finish did Highlander stories.
I vaguely knew that they did Highlander
I've
stories.
seen it on their website, yeah.
Huh.
Just as they've also
2
done...
seasons, I think, or something like that.
Stargate, SG-1, and Atlantis. They've done a couple of stories for as well.
I didn't know that.
Speaking of Big Finish, on to the reviews. Phobos, which I keep wanting to say Phobos. And it took me listening to it again to go, oh, no, I've been pronouncing that wrong. It is the Greek. Or is it Greek or Roman? It's Greek, right?
It's Greek, yeah.
Yeah, Mars is...
Oh, sorry, that's Roman.
No, Mars is Roman. Yes.
It's all Greek to me.
Phobos. I have to say this one was really interesting, and for a couple of minutes there, I was actually thinking that Hayden was John Barrowman.
No.
My mouth betrays me.
Wait, how'd you say it?
Barrowman.
Oh, yeah, you're okay. You're okay.
Don't confuse me. I worked really hard to get that out.
Yeah, you're all right.
No, I'm not doing this because of Brenda's letter from last week's podcast. This is what I was thinking when I first heard this audio play, and still do, and had to stop myself knowing that it wasn't him. There was so much action going on that this one went quickly. The whole thing with Greek mythology and... Is it Greek mythology or Roman?
It is Greek, according to the... I
was just looking it up. Sake.
That's why...
I thought they said Greek in the play.
I said Greek because I thought it was Greek, and then you said Mars, and I thought, well, in the audio play, he does say Mars. Oh, it's because it's a moon of Mars. That's why. That's why he says Mars. Yeah, it's Greek.
But Mars is the Roman god of war.
Believe it or not.
Correct?
Yeah, yes.
But the twin moons are...
Greek.
Ares is the Greek god of war.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where they got it. Okay. This doesn't make a lick of sense. Stupid astronomers.
Well, but no, because Eris is the Roman god. Ares is Greek and Eris is Roman. So.
Right, but Ares is the
Ares is
god of war.
No. Yes.
As was Mars.
Yes.
Just okay. Showcasing our intellects once again. The whole thing with the Greek mythology and Phobos meaning fear played a part at the end with the rest of the vacationers not trusting and afraid of Feral. It is an L, yes. Glasses, good. The Doctor, in a roundabout way, mentions the Time War, with him seeing the death and destruction of a people and their planet. No more lies. Another enjoyable audio, and I have to say there were little hints of Immortal Beloved in this one, but instead of using other bodies to continue on living, a time loop was used instead. Poor Lucy at the end getting captured by the headhunter, and the Doctor realizing a little too late that something's not quite right. Well, I'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on these two stories. Holly from Wisconsin. And thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Up next in feedback is Chrissy.
Chrissy writes, scarier than the monsters. Dear Vortex Boys, I have no idea what was up with these two audios. Or maybe it was me. Wait a minute. Yeah. I have no idea what was up with these two audios. Or maybe it was me. Well, if you had no idea what was up, it was you. It took me listening to both of these 3 times before I knew what was going on in either story. But I finally got it, and honestly, I felt like both of these stories had similar tropes and plot lines going on, even though the trappings of each story was very different. I felt like the villains, for lack of a better term, of both stories had similar motivations, ultimately protecting their homes and loved ones, for doing things they did. And in both of them, the villains' wives die, and it's awful and sad, and you feel bad for them, even though you don't really want to feel bad for them. Phobos. An entire planet devoted to extreme sports. Sounds interesting, though this story was the one that I had the hardest time paying attention to. I did like the couple that were on the run and weren't there for an adrenaline rush. Kind of wish they had been the focus of the story rather than the B-plot. The rest of the characters were kind of meh. No more lies. This one lands us in the middle of a story already in progress, which means that what came before the start probably wasn't that interesting, and the focus should be on the love story between Nick and Rachel, even though Nick's the reason all of the crazy time Vortosaurus stuff is going on. Love the appearance of the Vortosaurus, though. Good to see them back, especially in an 8th Doctor story. That's it for me. I hope this gets to you guys in time. Kind of left it late. It's been a crazy couple of days and only going to get crazier this month for me. Have a good week, and I'll talk to you later. Chrissy, and you did just make it in under the bar.
Chrissy, I hope your month settles down some. But thanks for the feedback.
Maybe crazy is good.
Then I hope it gets crazier.
It's not that much left of the month, so it can't be too bad, right? 3 more days.
That's true. Maybe she meant July.
I do not think that word means what you think it means.
That's it for feedback. Thank you, everyone, for writing in. Shall we move on to our reviews?
We shall.
Phobos. Right? Phobos?
Pahabos.
The TARDIS lands on the moon of Mars, where extreme sports nuts of the future indulge their passions for gravity boarding and wormhole jumping. But there is something lurking in the shadows, something infinitely old and infinitely dangerous. It's not for nothing that Phobos is the ancient word for fear.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bit stronger than I would give.
Really?
But I enjoyed it.
Here we go. Ready?
Phobos.
Oh, Phobos, according to YouTube's pronunciation guide.
She's not British either, so.
Well, we need to know how the Greeks pronounce it.
Yeah, where's the Greek translation?
I don't think I have that. All right, so why would you have not gone quite as strong?
It was good. It just was kind of there for me. I think part of it is coming off of. We've done a long stretch of Big Finish stories, and I'd kind of gotten into the swing of the 4-part, 2-hour-long stories, and the switch to these 45-minute story. It felt like a lot of it was rushed. Like they didn't give enough character exploration and atmosphere building and all of this other stuff that I normally get in my stories. I think that's a large part of why the story was just kind of there for me. There was a lot of stuff I did enjoy. Paul McGann was phenomenal in this, as always. Lucy Miller's becoming a little less annoying to me. The supporting cast was pretty good. And the exploration that there's this evil creature inside the moon that's fittingly named. I mean, it's kind of there's stuff there that makes it interesting. It was just kind of, it just felt like we glossed over a lot of it and rushed to an ending. I think that's just a lot of me just switching gears between the type of storytelling that they're doing more than anything else.
Glenn?
I land on the same side of it as Keith. I think that your dun 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 was a little too strong. I actually like the faster pacing of the 45-minute stories.
Normally I do.
The problem with this one, and this may be the answer to your problem, is there's far too many characters for a 45-minute story.
That's the problem.
And that's where it boils down to, is because we're introduced to the adrenaline junkies, we're introduced to the two characters that are hidden or running
couple.
away. Yeah, the couple that's running away. We're introduced to the husband and the wife, and the husband trying to keep people away from the planet. Old Man Smithers. There's even a Scooby-Doo reference in this one, which I kind of like. And then, of course, Lucy and the Doctor. So we've got four different sets of people.
And then there are a lot
they do weave it all together, but there's just far too much for everybody to be doing. So,
and if there had been
less for everybody to be
maybe
doing.
one or two of the adventurers instead of so many of them, that it seemed like we got introduced. I couldn't keep track of who all was the adrenaline junkies and who.
Well, I think
partially because they were killing them off.
Yeah, I think that
but
I didn't have a problem with that because they were picking them off, and I didn't have a problem. But the two you have to focus on are the one guy that's kind of nervous about the whole thing, and the other guy that's just completely fearless about everything, who, to his detriment, ends up getting seriously injured at the end. But and then, of course, I really got invested in the couple that
I did too. I think
by species relationship that was going on there, and that his family, they were running because his family were against their union, and it just there was so much there that I thought could have been done something with,
could have
and
explored those characters so much
and
more.
I had kind of hoped that maybe this was just a setup to something that we'll learn later on that they'll be reintroduced, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my hope as to why they were plopped into this story, but it seemed like they were almost kind of shoved in there to give another emotional
to give it
moment to something,
weight,
give some gravitas or some weight, and it just, I don't know, I wanted to know more about this and what was going on, and I didn't feel like 45 minutes was enough to kind of develop their story. I think the other thing that sits a little funny with me, and the doctor, when he's taking care of the situation, he goes into the crater, and the woman's already possessed by the entity that's coming through. He seems very unaware of the fact that her life is in mortal danger. The human, the wife, I can't remember her name, and it almost he at least makes a reference to her death and how it was unfortunate, but it's almost like he willingly puts her body in at a risk that, while it might have been necessary for the plot, he seems to be, instead of being faced with an entity that's possessing a body, he's almost like he's just pushing past that and facing the entity. And
there's a part of it that's almost 12th Doctor-ish about him, and the fact that it's almost like he considers her already dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of took away from it that maybe she had been possessed so far.
That's probably the case, but I think the problem with the story is it doesn't convey that to me as a listener, that was his impression. And if, unlike the 12th Doctor, who you get that you get the exhibition, or you get the description, or he basically conveys that that's how he understands it and feels. You don't get that so much from the 8th Doctor. And had they given me a little bit of more of that, had the Doctor, given me a little bit more about why he acted in such a way that he did, I could buy that. I think the other thing that I don't like about this is it's almost like in the 8th Doctor's adventures, they knew at this point that there had been a time war, and that one of the doctors had led up to that. And it's almost like they were going they're leading towards this in the change in the Eighth Doctor's demeanor and a lot of his impassioned speeches. And I mean, he's got one in each story where he has this really incredible dialogue, which I think was wonderful. But it's almost like this was the road they were going down. And maybe the only reason it is a little uneasy is the fact that he doesn't really get to that point in my eyes until Night of the Doctor, because he still is that very wanting to
run away from
distance himself from the Time War, and that's the War Doctor's job, is to be the Dark Doctor, the one that the Doctor later then wants to forget. So I can't fault them for that, because there was a lot of gray area at the time that this was produced. And they had no idea.
Well,
and
so
even
here, I know that I've said it before, that in my mind, Paul McGann's the one, that it wasn't Eccleston who went off and did it, that it was McGann's Doctor who fought the war, up until the War Doctor.
But I think that's because Big Finish sort of started playing that.
They started going that direction. Well, and they knew at this point, because it was recorded in 2006.
That's what I'm saying. They knew that there was a time war. Yeah. In fact, that's why they spun 8 off into his own series, because they were knew who had come back. And
I kind of like the bit with her being possessed and him being a little bit more flippant. I like the slightly darker turn for the Eighth Doctor, especially after that speech he gave. And then Lucy's line at the end of it, I don't know which is worse, you or the monsters. And that feels very much like it's linking the classic series and the new series together for me. So we got so much of that kind of exploration in 10's run, and a little bit in 9 and a little bit in 11. But there's more of that exploration than we ever got in the classic series, and it feels like it's helping bridge that gap even.
I wouldn't have so much of a problem with it. And again, I think that Night of the Doctor kind of just ineffectively sours that. But I don't think you needed a run-up. I think you needed because there's such a gap between 8 and 10. I like that 10 is affected, and even 9 is affected by the Time War. But to have the 8th Doctor kind of lead up to it and even allude to it in some of the part of the speech that he makes, it's really hard for me to rectify the character in this based on what's come after it, I think, is the problem. Yeah. But overall, I didn't hate this story. I think it was an enjoyable story. Again, I like the fast pace of the 8th Doctor audios, but this one just seemed to have way too much going on for a 45-minute story.
Part of the darkness and the characterization of the Doctor in this also feels like it's calling back a little bit to some of the darker stuff they've done with McCoy and the direction they took his character. Like he's almost slipping back into his 7th darkness a little bit too.
Well, that statement actually kind of fixes it. Now that you say that, I mean, it's not as far removed now that you say it that way.
Because you got to also count those and keep those in context.
Whenever it was a few weeks back, we reviewed Shadow of the Scourge for the Benny Archive. And I came down as not very favorable of it. And one of the comments that I made is because we've done this story before where we've had this thing that lives on fear and, feeds on it or whatnot. And it wasn't until I went back and listened to this that I realized this was the primary one that I was thinking of, because I had gone through all of the 8th Doctor stuff way earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I feel a little vindicated then for my defense.
Yeah. So that was part of it. Now, for the Doctor's timeline, I listened to it out of order, but for the Doctor's timeline, maybe that's why he's a little more flippant at the end, because he's like,
I've dealt with
been there, done that. All right, let's get over with. I liked the story from the standpoint that it really was an episode of Scooby-Doo. I mean, we've got a monster, we've got a guy trying to keep
it was Scooby-Doo with a twist.
It was, if you were going to write a Doctor Who episode like an episode of Scooby-Doo, this is what it would come out at, and the hour-long format I think works for that.
Yeah.
And so I remember really, really, really liking it. Just the whole idea that there's a whole moon that's dedicated to extreme sports. It's like, okay, sure, why not? That's a very Doctor Who idea. You know, Douglas Adams would have had a heyday with that. That there's a whole planet out there for that.
Yeah.
Except
for he would have done it funnier.
The boyfriend or the couple, husband and wife that were running away. First of all, he was great. Whatever voice modulating thing that they used on him worked. Which sometimes when I listen to Big Finish, I get they tend to do two voices. They do gravelly and gruff, and they do the hissing snake thing to symbolize some sort of alien thing. And this one, for some reason, and again, maybe it's because of the time frame in which I listen to these, because this would have only been the 6th Big Finish story I'd ever heard. This one worked for me, and it was just like, oh, that guy is awesome. Because just the way he sounds makes me envision
some big hulking creature.
I mean, he's a Wookiee without the hair. I can't quite figure out what he is, but
they're furries, according to this.
Yeah, he's that guy. Okay, cool. And I kind of wish they'd do more things like that than because it
is kind of refreshing, especially for him, to have an alien species that doesn't sound English or sounds different than a normal human.
Yeah,
because so many times we get those human sounding aliens.
Yeah. Or the hissing, or this was different, and I really liked that.
I would agree that was strong,
and I agree that I wish that they'd been given a little more plot to kind of flesh that out. On a second listen through, I still liked it for all of the same reasons, but I was struck by that. This is the one I was thinking of. Where did I hear this? And went back to Scourge specifically. But I also like the impassioned Time Lord Victorious that kind of shows up at the end of this thing when he bungee jumps into the pit to kind of deal with it, and very matter-of-factly dispatches of this thing just by it's without quite as much grandeur as Matt Smith going, here, feed on my memories, in that kind of
and actually succeeding.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but Paul McGann's Doctor is the only one I can actually see bungee jumping.
I can't imagine McCoy doing it. Yeah. I can maybe see 5.
Maybe 5, maybe 4, but only McGann is the one that kind of springs to mind as pulling it off successfully and climbing back up and going.
4 would do it with a scarf. So we wouldn't go very far.
Just tie this off. But there were moments of this that I thoroughly enjoyed, and then
I wasn't a huge fan of the Yeti creatures.
I think I was, just from the standpoint that it wasn't.
They were almost Yeti.
A hissing monster, that it wound up being very pedantic. That it was a service robot.
Yeah.
The wife's name was Eris, Eris.
Oh well, there we go. Thus our confusion.
Interesting.
But I don't necessarily disagree with you guys on the this is one of those that I feel like we probably could have gotten a little bit more, especially coming off the heels of the run of the 4-parters.
It's just all those characters to try to jam in there and give them depth, and you don't need a lot of depth for the Adrenaline Junkies, but they tried to give some, and I don't know. They just could have focused on other stuff and done a better job, I think.
This is only the second story that I believe, I've got my timeline right here, that was written by Eddie Robson. And he becomes one of my favorite writers of the 8th Doctor series. So hopefully you will think a little higher of some of the ones that are coming out. And not to spoil anything, but yes, Glenn, to a certain extent. I don't think it's necessarily a thread that runs throughout the 8th Doctor range, but once we get to the end of the 8th Doctor range, it definitely felt like there was a Time Lore lead up. Like this was definitely direction that they were kind of going to push for. So maybe it was purposeful that they kind of ran it through all of it. But
to be fair to Eddie Robson, it was, according to TARDIS Wiki, this was a rewrite of somebody else's script.
No.
Oh, really?
So maybe it's He's the good parts of it.
Kai was the old man's name.
The last one that he did that we reviewed would have been Memory Lane, which was with Charlotte and Cariz in the neighborhood that was identically the same all the way around. I remember liking that one.
Yeah, I did too. Anything else on Phobos?
No.
Well, alrighty then.
That's fine.
No more lies. What links a disintegrating spaceship to a posh garden party where a wealthy couple are celebrating their love for each other in style? Gatecrashers, the Doctor, and Lucy think they know the answer, but they're not only uninvited guests. Ferocious alien warriors riding pterodactyl-like vortosaurs are about to make their entrance.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's an appropriate dun, dun, dun.
I'll give you that one.
I like the latter half of this a lot. The first part...
Once it settled down.
Once I could get a grasp on what was happening. I'm okay when stories drop me in the middle. But this one seemed to drop me in the deep end without a life preserver or knowing how to swim. There's so much... And there's still part of it I don't understand why they were running or what the aliens are fully after. I don't think they fully explained that to me properly. And that's my biggest complaint with the story. There was too much of the running in a spaceship and it exploding, and I knew they needed to set that up, but they could have shortened that and made it much quicker to get to the garden party where this time loop is going on, which I found absolutely fascinating and engaging, and Zimmerman, who we are supposed to not like, you really come to like and sympathize with once he lands on this planet. It's been 30 years for him.
Yeah.
And his brother and all of this stuff in there and this alien invasion coming in. They almost could have done it without brother-in-law. Yeah, you're right. Without the setup of the crash. They could have just landed, oh, hey, it's Zimmerman, and then given us the backstory later in the story with a flashback. I think might have worked better than trying to throw us onto the ship as it's crashing.
Part of that, and I remember the first time I listened to this one, when I came to it this time, I went, No More Lies. What, No More? I don't remember which one, No More Lies, because it's kind of an innocuous title. It doesn't really mean anything. Mm-hmm. And then it started,
it's called that.
And I went, oh, yeah, this is that one. Cool, this will give me a chance to really pay attention and figure out what's going on. Because when I started this the first time, it was once again one of those that when you don't necessarily, you listen to this as a digital copy and you think to yourself, did it skip? Did something wrong?
Did something go wrong?
And I think that there's certainly ways to do that where you have stories start in the middle.
Oh, and we've got them so many times on that.
Yeah, and it's certainly a great storytelling technique when it works. And I think it's even a little daring of them to attempt to do it in a 50-minute story.
Yeah.
Versus one of the longer ones where they can really go back and give us the backstory and flesh it out and fill us in, and then we all go, oh. So to condense it down to that was,
bold.
Bold, yeah. We'll say bold. But I agree with you. I don't know that it necessarily worked.
I think it worked fine. I actually quite enjoyed how they interweaved it, and it really almost felt like, I don't know why, because I can't compare it to anything off the top of my head, but it really felt like 11th Doctor story. It felt like something that would have worked really well with 11, Amy, and Rory. And just I like that. I think the only thing that annoyed me was the violin between the flashing scenes between going to what was going on here and what was going on there. But I think maybe getting dropped into the story added a lot of excitement, because when we're dropped into
slow on the garden part.
Exactly, because when we're dropped into Lucy and the Doctor and they're being chased by the what were they, Tarmadoc? When they were being chased by the Tarmadoc, it was like, wow, what is going on here? And my brain's scrambling to figure out what's going on, and I'm trying to fill in the gaps. And okay, it's bad, it's danger. They're trying to get in. Dr. Zimmerman's got something. He's going to launch himself into the vortex, and I really kind of like that, being completely confused, and then that screech. Okay, we're back at the garden party, and what's her name singing some song in Greek or Latin or something? No, Hungarian
or Romanian,
one of those languages. And there's this simple party story, but they keep dropping this hint of deja vu. I feel like this has happened before. And I thought, okay, something has happened that's caused a time loop. And I went, oh, okay. So that was a payoff when I actually find out that it was that Zimmerman was the reason that it had created the loop. And so, I liked being dropped into this right away, and I liked the fact that we were telling two stories until the Doctor and Lucy arrive, and then everything kind of comes together. So that was good. I agree with you in the aspect of how you really, Zimmerman's the bad guy in this, no matter, despite the fact that you've got monsters chasing the Tarmadoc, but. You don't like Zimmerman at first. You know what he's up to. You know what's going on until you kind of figure out who he is and that he's the husband that is going on. And I would agree that you sort of sympathize with the character, which I like sometimes that they do that. And
then the fact that he gives those lines to the Doctor of we probably could have been friends.
Yeah,
in other situations.
But
unlike a Dr. Master interaction. You kind of get the sense that he genuinely meant it, when he's apologizing for the time lash or whatever that was. And he's like, I expect that hurt. I'm very sorry. And you just kind of like,
you do until the character almost slips back into his old way. And you're like, okay, now I hate this guy again. And all of that seemed very disingenuous. That whole conversation, everything that he'd been, basically patronizing the Doctor and Lucy. Until you realize that he's doing it because of his wife and why he's done it. And then you're back to liking the guy again, going, okay, I can understand. You're still the bad guy. I still don't like you, but I can sympathize with why you've done this. And I like the idea that the Doctor and Lucy showed up like 10 minutes after they just left him. But he had been there for
30 years.
30 years.
That was one of the
and it was
parts
like
I really liked.
It was one of those. Yeah, it was one of those realizations of wow, he's lived out a third of his life, and the Doctor had just left him 10 minutes ago. From the Doctor's perspective, so I thought that was really cool. Really, it's not really wibbly wobbly, but it was very.
Well, it was playing with time. In a good
exactly,
way. Yeah.
and in a really clever way. So I thoroughly liked that aspect of it.
I also like the idea of the Tarmadocs and whatever they were after was in a way to get them back to how they used to be. And it sounds like an interesting species that I wouldn't mind exploring more of. The fact that they haven't always been these just time-eating creatures, that they were once a civilized society, that something happened, I don't know what, and something happened and they became this way. It just felt one of those missing pieces for me in the story that maybe I need to listen to it again to pick up on it better and understand what happened and what was going on there better. But the idea was really cool. I just wish it would have delivered.
That's the part that falls down for me is that instead of just being the heavy of the piece,
instead of just being muscle,
they're given this tantalizing little morsel of backstory that we weren't always like this. You turned us into this, or it's implied that whatever he did is what then caused them to do this, or at least that whatever he has will get them back
to what they used to be.
Okay, yeah. But instead of exploring that, it's just we're going to close down the loop, we're going to blow this up, and we're going to end it, and that'll seal it. And they stuck back in the time warp, and so they never really get a resolution. And this is kind of another one of those that, well, had this been a 4-parter, I think the Doctor might have worked a little harder to try and salvage something of the situation to fix it for them as well as dealing with, the time loop part of it. But it's kind of one of those where I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too. I think they either needed to just be the muscle that's coming in. Oh, there's a disruption, so let's go eat on it. And then,
kind of like the Vortex.
Then they're a mindless monster, and it's like, okay, whether there's a time factor involved, we have to solve this. Boom, we blow it up, we seal them off. Okay, everything's good. But the moment you humanize them and give them that we weren't always like this. Now it's like, oh, well, now I feel like we need to deal with it.
Yeah.
And we don't touch on it at all.
Something that I thought was kind of neat, and I don't know that I can it's been several months since I read it, but Mission Impractical, which was a Frobisher story. That I read the novel. It's Sixth Doctor and Frobisher, and it was a novel that when we were preparing our Frobisher archive, I had read the novel. And there's actually a character in that book, and he's a traitor. He's a traitor of temporal engineering, and his name's Zimmerman. But he's kind of this side character that's just really more discussed, and he's not really a character in the book, but he's mentioned and something there. He's involved in such a way, without giving the story away. He's involved in such a way that he's kind of important to the story, but he's like a character that's almost off stage essentially the whole time. And as I read the book, it sort of kind of made me think that it was the Valeyard, that Zimmerman was really the Valeyard, and that was But then when I heard this, and I thought, well, this guy's like dealing with temporal engineering, and his name's Zimmerman, and I wondered if maybe they plucked that from there to kind of give that character, and maybe this wasn't the Valeyard that was hiding out, and that it actually was this guy. And I wondered if maybe Big Finish had taken that route and sort of. Yeah, I think when we read Mission Impractical sometime, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about it. But I thought that was kind of interesting. That there was a little bit of a thread of a connection, and I wasn't sure if this was supposed to be the same Zimmerman or not.
TARDIS Wiki doesn't connect the two.
Oh, it doesn't?
So,
okay.
But that doesn't mean it's not the case.
Right,
maybe that Zimmerman was the inspiration for this.
It could be. And then, like I say, the book sort of implies that Zimmerman in Mission Impractical is the Valeyard, if I remember right. Or at least you're left with that impression that that's who it was.
The actor who voiced Zimmerman would later attempt to marry Sarah Jane Smith in the Sarah Jane Adventures, which I attribute as to why he's kind of sort of likable despite being not such a nice guy.
I really did also liked in this. I've been bagging kind of on the spaceships part of it, but I really liked Lucy's taking the lead in this story. I really like that aspect. That considering where this relationship started and how grumpy they were with each other and how adversarial they were, that now he's trusting her enough to let her take the lead in this obviously dangerous situation. And even when they get to the garden, he trusts her and lets her take the lead a little bit. I really like that exploration of their
and it makes you feel too that maybe they've been together.
There's obviously been.
Well, obviously there's whatever was happening with Zimmerman was a product of something from before.
And I think there was a reference in Phobos to another adventure also.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm fine. I'm actually enjoying Lucy's character, and I like how they're developing a very strong female character.
Yeah.
Not just the aggravation that she was giving the Doctor in the beginning, but just as you said, the trust that's been earned with her character, and she's really growing as a character, and it's still interesting to find out who she is since the headhunter shows up twice. And she shows up at the end late, at the end of Phobos, and in this one she actually does, and ends up taking Lucy. So
I'm trying to remember now. Has she now been in every single story?
It seemed like
she pulled a missing. She was missing in the Ian McNeice one.
Mortal Beloved.
Beloved.
Yeah, she was missing.
She was in Horror of Fang Rock, but she was,
Horror of Glam Rock.
Horror of Glam Rock, but she was not in Mortal Beloved. You're right.
Right. I think that's the only one she missed. So it's kind of like a Missy story or aspect of it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing or hearing what happens next. I hope that it's not too long.
I presume we're going to get just the way this one ended, and the fact that the next one's called Human Resources. I think we're going to get finally the Headhunter's story.
How many are in this range or in this season? Is it 7?
8.
Is it 8? So
yeah, we have 2 more.
Human Resources is a 2-parter.
Yeah. So okay. Part 1 and Part 2.
We planned that.
It's not even named 2 separate things.
No,
it's like Blood of the Daleks. It's Part 1 and Part 2.
I enjoy with Lucy and the Doctor how they've kind of taken a parallel track with Six and Perry. That they start off very adversarial and kind of set against each other, but they're, for all intents and purposes, stuck together. To the point there, we've talked about how Six and Perry, actually kind of enjoy bickering at each other in a way, but it's not the kind of blah, blah, blah. Versus Lucy and the Doctor, where they've gotten to that point now where however much time has passed that they're together, that she feels comfortable enough to make cracks about him looking at her bum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that he's still flustered by it. So,
The other thing about Lucy is I get the impression that she's from a region in the UK that
well, she's from the north because we got a reference about her accent.
Isn't looked upon as maybe kind of like our South, how there is this general characterization that they're just not very bright. I like that that's you get the impression that she's from that region, but she's a very intelligent woman, and it's like playing against type, and I love that. It's playing the type of the character. I like the fact that she's got some very intelligent ideas, and she's very smart about things, and she seems to figure things out right away. Yeah. And I really like that about that character. Whereas I agree with the parallel between Sixth and Perry. I never felt that Perry was... I mean, Perry wasn't dumb, but I never really gave her much credit for thinking things through like I do with Lucy. And so that's where it's almost like they've emulated that relationship, but they've taken it a step further, and they've really given Lucy some credibility. And I like that.
And it works too with Paul McGann's doctor again. That those moments where he berates himself for being stupid or thick or dense or whatever. And that in this one, we get a couple instances of Lucy going, well, what if it was this? And he goes, no, it wouldn't work because of this. Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, what if it was that? No, that wouldn't work because of this. And then they get down to the garden party, and she goes, well, it's like a time loop. No, you're right, that's stupid. And he goes, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
You're brilliant. Stupid doctor. Why didn't I think of that? And so he's off on this thing, and she's kind of left going, I guess I'll just keep trying. I'll just keep throwing them out there and see what happens.
Well, and I know we talked about it a little bit when she was introduced, but there still is a little bit of that Donna characterization. She's kind of similar to Donna, I think, especially in the growth that we've seen in her as a character. I think the parallels between 10 and Donna and 8 and Lucy are pretty... and because
except for I think that in my mind that she's separating from the Donna character, because I remember us talking about that.
She's separating.
She's separating the style of character that she is from Donna. I don't so much see the Donna relationship because Donna, I think, still was kind of dopey, although she stumbled onto some smart things.
Yeah,
but Lucy, she's got a good head on her shoulders.
It's almost like they're doing the Donna stuff. Even it's like they're mixing Donna and Perry together with a bit more intelligence.
Yeah, I agree with some Martha.
Yeah.
I think that's
certainly
true.
That's another one that reminds me of is Human Nature, where we open with them running into the TARDIS, being chased with blaster bolts.
There you go.
That kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing that after 50
maybe
years...
it feels like a 10th Doctor story, maybe not 11th Doctor story.
Isn't it amazing that after so many years and so many different companions that we really still haven't hit upon two that are carbon copies of each other, that they all wind up with, at least when given time to properly develop, that they're all a little different.
I think why I equated this to 11th Doctor is I think that we're dropped into a situation on a spaceship that's already happening in Christmas Carol. I mean, the klaxons are already going on, and they're crashing onto the planet.
Okay.
And I think maybe that's what I'm getting.
Doctor the Widow and the Wardrobe.
That's what I went with too.
But no,
but that also started
opening, I guess.
Yeah, it started in that way as well. Yeah. Maybe that's why I feel this is more 11th Doctor because we're dropped at the beginning right into the middle of a story. So
I did like the return of the Vortex.
Yeah,
and the references to I had a pet.
And obviously we can't call it Ramsey.
Ramsey, that's what it was.
We can't call her Ramsey. What are we going to go? What do you got, Doctor? And he says, I think this one's a Margaret. Doesn't she look like a Margaret? And I just smiled and went, God, I love Paul McGann so much.
Well, and that's a bit that felt kind of like 11th Doctor. And her name is Susan, and he wants you to respect his life choices.
Her life choices.
Yeah. There was a lot of good stuff in it. It was just so jarring, and I feel like I still didn't fully get a good picture. So maybe I just need to go back and listen to it. I agree with a lot of stuff you said about the characterization.
All right, what do we got coming up next?
Well, coming up next, as we mentioned last week, is that we've had a change in the programming for the Friday Night Who. We will be finishing the second half of Web of Fear. Parts 4 through 6 on the 3rd of July.
Correct. I'm going to have to do some scurrying to get the first 3 watched because I intended to be there, and then at 1:30 in the morning I went, missed another one. About the time you guys have been wrapping up.
So you could have been, and you just were not.
I was home. Holly had a long day, so she went to bed early. The kid Mason goes to bed early. Caitlin was in her room. I don't know. I think I was reading. I think is what happened. Is I sat down, picked up my book, and started reading. And then about 1:30, I went. It's Friday night. I intended to watch.
I will make this easy for you, Glenn. It will be every Friday at midnight.
Yeah. Well, most Fridays it's family time, but this Friday was my time, and I could have done it.
My time.
Next week is family time, so.
But we'll be finishing up with Web of Fear, and then, the reason for the change, we are almost out of June, which means you have a couple of days left officially to finish reading and get your review posted on Goodreads.
I think they leave the thread open for about a week or so, so you'll have some time to post.
If you want street cred,
yes.
I finished the June book in June.
I haven't been on there today, but only Holly and I have submitted reviews. So if you're finishing up or you have finished up, be sure and put your review on.
And a very nice spoiler-free review that you had there.
Well, I knew we were reviewing it ourselves.
Appreciate that, do I, says the
Well, I'm a lot more apt to do spoiler-free or make sure that, like my last review where I put spoiler in it, because I know there's a lot of people that are still reading, and I tend to finish these up before the month's over, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Yeah.
So if there's going to be spoilers, I'll put major spoilers, warnings, and all the way down the page like I did last time, or I'll just, This one I felt like I could easily do a spoiler-free review.
I am on, where am I?
Right there in the chair next to me. Sean, you're in your own house. How do you forget where you're at?
I'm on page 220.
Oh, you're nearly done.
Yeah, 289.
Yeah,
so
you're nearly done.
It is a quick read, and it moves very, very quickly. And I was quite surprised, and I probably should save this, but I was quite surprised. I reached a point in the book where it really felt like it had kind of and then run up to this, we're done. But I still have 150 pages to go.
Well,
what is
as he pointed out, there's a lot of...
there's like 10 to 15 pages of...
There's at least 4... what do they call them? Previews of the other books. So I think really you said 270 something, but I think it's less than that. I think it's like 250 something.
Oh, so I'm almost in it.
I looked it up on my...
But no, literally, I think about page 70.
I trust you because you did most recently look at it. But I thought I was much further away from 280 and went,
shorter than the actual...
So
about page 70 or 80, I really kind of felt like the story felt like it was wrapping up. But it's not. There's still more to go. The things that have happened since then.
I can't wait to review this because it was just excited. I loved this book.
Oh no, I was... Okay, 270.
The following week, while Keith looks at his phone...
274.
It's officially 274. Okay. The following week...
I'll tell you, the last 2 chapters, can't put it down.
I'm usually that way with any book.
I think I read...
Once I get to the last few chapters, I'm like, I got to mouth.
I usually read anywhere between 10 and 20 chapters. 10 and 20 pages at a sitting if I can. I read like 50-some pages the last day. It's like, wow.
That's why I stopped where I did, because I was getting to that point where I knew I was going to need to stop because I was doing it on my lunch breaks and stuff. And I looked down, realized where I was at, and I kind of didn't do the same thing with Keith. Is once I realized that I'm in that 60 to something page before the end of the book, it's just plow.
Well, and usually everything ramps up so much too that it's hard to put it down.
So I stopped purposefully here, knowing that I had 40 some odd pages before the end, and I wanted to make sure that I could just devote to it. But the following week is not necessarily a change, but it is a change in that Friday Night Who will actually happen on Saturday because of British Fest, which Keith and I will be at up in not Omaha, Nebraska, but Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is right next door.
Just across the border.
Just across the border.
Across the border.
They're kind of like this.
You can walk from one to the other.
In fact, there's a bridge.
If you're standing on the edge, if you're standing on the edge of one, walk across the river. You're in Council Bluffs.
But so we will be up there for British Fest, and hopefully you can come see us. And we will be there Saturday and Sunday. And of course, we've covered some of the guests that are going to be there, including friend of the show, Simon Fisher-Becker. We hope to have some more with him. And the Timey Wimey Puppet Show in my corner will be there, and with an all-new show that you're going to miss out on.
I know.
Aren't you jealous? Because I'm going to get to see it this time.
Wait a minute. No, I saw the all-new show. Is it different from Planet Comic-Con?
I think so.
Because it was brand new for Planet Comic Con.
Yeah, I think Planet Comic Con was the new show.
I think he's got new puppets, so I'm anticipating an
he
all
definitely
new
has
show.
some new puppets. I don't know.
I'm anticipating an all new show, and I will be first to see it this time.
It'll be all new to him, regardless.
It'll be all new to me. Well, even if I had seen it, it'd be all new to me.
Yeah, but he's bragging that I won't get to see it, but if it's the same show, it's...
You didn't get to see the whole show. You duck out early.
That's true. Oh, you were with me.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I know.
But
you weren't even the first 10 minutes of our show.
Wasn't a Tonight Show either. Got Legacy pulled up over here. I don't know what are we talking about tonight? Anyway, so it'll be Saturday night, and we'll get you the official time because it'll be running during the con. But it'll be doing Good Man Goes to War in honor of Simon Fisher Becker being present at that con, and we're talking about that. And then Ghostlight is the week after that, which again we know is not readily available on DVD, and it's out of print, and we apologize, but circumstances have kind of forced our hand on getting the Ace trilogy started a little sooner than I think we'd initially planned, so we're going to go ahead and plow into it, and Keith is beside himself with excitement at getting to rewatch Ghostlight.
It's been too long.
And the rest of the schedule is posted, so you can view that on our website.
I could be wrong, but I think Ghostlight is available on iTunes for a digital download.
Is it?
I believe so.
It is out of physical print.
Yeah, it's out of DVD print.
You won't be able to get a DVD copy, but I think you can, if you want to pay, what is it, $5.99 for the iTunes copy, you can do that. Cool. Anything else we need to discuss before we close this one out?
As always, you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on Twitter, and you can find us on, where else are we on? We're on Tumblr, we're on Goodreads, we're on Instagram. We don't have an Instagram account.
Yeah, we do.
We have an official Vortex Instagram account?
It's Traveling the Vortex.
We should post stuff to that.
I do.
For the record, Ghostlight is available also on Amazon for $1.99 a piece.
Well, there you go.
So you can have a digital copy for $1.99.
No excuse not to join in this Friday, or that Friday.
Yeah,
not this Friday.
If you got $8.
And very much appreciate all the folks who contribute to our Patreon account. And if you would like to support us monetarily, you can certainly do that. And links are on our website for that as well.
All right. Well,
come see us at British Fest.
Yes.
If that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.